Welcome to this DCP Web Blender 2.8 Neon Landscape beginner's tutorial. So in today's tutorial we're going to create something similar to this. So let's just let that play. So we've got this landscape being built as the camera moves. We've got this planet sort of thing in the background, and this logo pops up out of the floor, and we've got this smoke effect. So we've got quite a few things going on here. I'll just scrub through it a bit slower so you can see this land's being built, and then you've got all these particles dropping, and these particles are actually cubes, neon cubes in these different colors. And then we've got this like jewel effect landscape, and it's looking pretty good. So we want to create something similar to this, but in fact let's aim to create something a bit better. So to do this, let's open up Blender, and the first thing we do is click on General here, and then we'll go to File, Save As, and like usual we'll give I've created a folder on my desktop, so create a folder somewhere and give your file a name. I'm going to call it let's see, Neon Landscape -01, and we save it. So we've got the camera, we've got the light source, and we've got the cube. Let's click on the cube and delete it. So hit the delete key, and then we want to pan around so that we see the x-axis on the horizontal and the green axis will be on the vertical. The x and y like this. If you've not used Blender before, then I suggest you check the YouTube description where I'll give you a beginner's tutorial, and that's going to teach you really the core fundamentals of how to navigate around Blender, how to move the viewport and do all this good stuff. So check that tutorial if you're not familiar. The first thing we want to do is press number 7. Number 7 takes us into the top view, and we're going to press Shift A. So press the Shift key, then A, and that allows us to add an object. We can also do that from here. You can click on where is it, add here. You can add objects from here as well, but Shift A is a lot easier to remember, right? Just Shift A and then add a plane. So we'll click and add this plane, and we want to scale the plane, and we want to scale it to specific dimensions. So we need to make sure that the plane is selected here, plane, and we'll go down to the object data here, and on the scale you see scale. On the x-axis we want to set it to 10. So it would be like these two grey blocks wide, 10, and then on the y-axis we want to set it to 200. So now we've got this long object, this flat long object, and this is going to be what we use to create the landscape. Now the next thing we want to do is zoom quite close to something like this, and then go to edit mode here, and then we're going to subdivide this. So we're going to go to the edge and click subdivide. So we're going to do that once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5, and 6. So we're going to do that about 6 times. And you should see these little segments. Do it. In fact, do it 6 times. That will probably be good. 6 times, right? Now we want to press. What do we want to do? We want to get to like to the top here. Yeah, we want to see the viewport, but at the top, this top edge. So let's just shift and middle mouse click. Hold down the shift key and middle mouse click, and then we can zoom into the top here. So when we hold down the shift key and the middle mouse button, we can move our mouse up and down to pan, right? We want to zoom in and then press the letter A key. So on your keyboard you've got the letter A, you want to press it twice quickly. So when you press it twice quickly, it will unselect everything. If you press it once, the letter A, in edit mode, it will select everything. And if you press it twice quickly, the letter A, it will unselect everything. We want to unselect. I think we need to subdivide this one more time. So let's press A twice, or press A once so it selects everything. And I think we need to subdivide it at least one more time. Yeah, we need to subdivide it one more time. So it's like this. Then we can press A twice quickly and we unselect everything. And then we just want to randomly select vertices to create these canyons, or this like these mountains around the sides, right? So on this back object, we want to select a few of them. So hold down the shift key, and we're going to select like, not that many. So I've selected like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them, right? Just 5 of them here. You better probably see it a bit clearer here. Like 5 like this. And then down the sides, we want to select randomly down and leave like gaps in between as well, and make sure you're not selecting like identical across. You want to just randomize it down these sides, and you don't want to select anything too close to the middle. So it's around these edges here, and like leave gaps in between as well, and just make it a bit random down the sides here. So I'm going to zoom out, and if you zoom out you'll be able to see it a bit clearer, and we just want to select all the way down this object like this. So some you can select really close to the edge, some a little bit further in, but really you don't want them to be too uniform. You want them to be a bit random. So it takes a little bit of time to do, but we'll speed this up a bit. Let's just do this a bit quicker. And try and leave this gap down the middle. You don't want anything selected in the middle. And we've got to go all the way down this object, select these vertices quickly. So something like this. So here you can see all of the vertices that we selected. You can see there's quite a few at the top, and it gets a bit fade, like it's less dense as it goes down. But you can pick what you want. There's no like golden rule here. So let's just go to File, Save before we do anything, and then we're going to middle mouse click so that we can pan and see this at an angle like this. We want to zoom in a little bit as well. So something like this, and then we're going to go to here, and we're going to select Enable for proportional editing here. And then here we're going to select random. So enable proportional editing and then select random here. And when you press the letter G, G grabs these vertices. G will grab them. And then if you look in the far distance, I'm going to press escape. Around here you're going to see a circle appear, a white circle, right here where my mouse cursor is, right? So if I press G, you'll see that little circle there. Then you want to move your mouse wheel downwards, and you want to grow that circle like this. So rotate your mouse wheel downwards, and then press Z on your keyboard, the letter Z, and then raise up. And you can move your mouse wheel in and out to change. You know, you don't want that circle, that white circle, you don't want it to be too big. If you make it too big, then you can see that it's just too much detail, too much randomization. So you want it so that there's a clear channel down the middle, right? Something like this. So this, you can see roughly how big that white circle is. And we will left click to confirm this. We'll left click, and then we'll hit the tab key to go back into object mode. Now we've got this landscape, and if we move, we can see that our camera is going to fly down this landscape, right? That's what we're going to do. So let's zoom out a little bit, and we need to be looking down this like a barrel, right? Somewhere here. Then we'll press Control, Alt, and 0, and that moves our camera to this position. So if we press number 7 and zoom out a little bit, we can see where our camera is. Our camera is right here, yeah? So let's use the Move tool and click on the camera. Let's just drag it so that it's around here. So it's looking down the middle of this terrain. So when we press 0, we'll see that it's looking down the middle, and we're going to have to dodge around some of these. So in my last scene it was quite clean down the middle, but this time we're going to have to dodge around the edges a little bit, but that's fine. That should look good anyway. Okay, so if we're looking at the camera view at the moment, so if you middle mouse click, that's going to take you out of camera view. We can zoom out a little bit, and we're going to look at it sort of this angle here, down this way. We'll save this, and we want to go to the render view here. Click render view, and we're going to click on this plane, and we're going to press Shift and D to duplicate. Shift D, and we're going to make one copy. So and just hit the enter key, and that will make one copy. We're going to make we're going to click on this plane here, go to the material, click new, and we're going to set it to black. And then we're going to click on this plane here, and let's call this one land. The first one we're going to call land, and then the second one we're going to call land neon 1. So we've got land here, which is the original. Then we made a copy of it called land 1 neon. And we're going to click to the material here, and we're going to click new. Then we're going to go to the modifier here. And in the modifier, we're going to add a modifier, and we're going to add a wireframe. Then we're going to go back to the material and set it to an emission shader. And we're going to pick something like, you can pick any color you like now, right? In my last one, I think I used like blue and purple, I think it was. So maybe this time we'll go with like a, let's try red. We'll try red for now, and maybe a different color as well afterwards. So this is the red color. You can see it's not really looking like the animation we created in my example. So let's zoom in a little bit here, and we look down the barrel, almost looking down the scene, something like this. And then we're going to click on the land neon. We're going to go back to the modifier, and we're going to reduce the thickness to around 0.0, I think 0.010, yeah, 0.0010. So let's press, let's file save this first, file save, and press F12 to render it. And we can see we get this kind of neon landscape. Well, it's not neon yet, we're going to do that in a minute. Okay, that's kind of the first part. Now, with this neon land selected, we want to duplicate it. So press Shift D and then hit the Enter key. And now we've got 2 neon landscapes, but they're exactly the same. So with this one, we're going to call it neon landscape number 2. So we're going to click on that, and we're going to go back to its material, and we're going to remove the material from here. So click the minus here, and then we're going to add a new one, and we're going to make that an emission shader. So let's make it an emission shader here. And we did red, so I think red and yellow work quite well together, right? But you can pick any colors you like. So I'm going to pick like this yellow color, and then I'm going to go to the object data here, and I want to shift this off axis a little bit. So on the location, I'm going to move it to 0.02, like this. So it's a little bit offset. And let's just file save. And then I'm going to go to the render settings and turn on bloom, like this. And then I'm going to the world settings, so click world here, and set it to black. Now you're getting that sort of neon style. Let's press F12 to render it and see what it looks like. Now you can kind of see that neon effect, right? We should probably press 0 on our keyboard, so we can see what the camera sees now. So this box is representing the camera, and we'll go to the camera settings. Let's see, let's click on the camera here. Let's click on its settings here, and the focal length, we want to bring that out to like, let's see, probably like a 36mm, like this. So we've got a wider angle. Then we can press F12, and now we're going to see more of the scene. It's like a fisheye lens, like a wider camera angle, right? So I'm not quite convinced that these are the right colors. The red and the yellow are okay, I guess. But let's see if we can go into the bloom settings, and we can play around with the radius, right? So you can turn it completely off, or you can have it up further. I'm going to set mine to like around 7. Let's see what 7 looks like. F12 to render. I think that will be okay, but I'm not convinced these are the right colors. So I think the red is just a bit, it's just not right for me. So let's go to the, we did I think yellow first, right? So neon land, this neon number 2, we can click here, that's the yellow one. So let's go to the first one, is the red one, and let's change that to maybe a purple color. We could go for like blue. I did blue before last time, so let's try purple. We'll press F12. And I think the yellow is going to be wrong now. So we've got purple here. And we just need to find the right color combination. So this is where you can experiment, play around with the settings. Maybe we'll go like for a purple. I think I did purple and blue right before. Let's try green. Let's have a look at the video quickly. We did purple and blue, and those colors just seem to work really well, purple and blue. So let's go back to Blender. So if we do green, maybe we do green and purple might work. Let's have a look. Yeah, I quite like that. I like the green and purple. Those seem to work well. So with this neon land selected, in the modifier we've got the wireframe. We've set it to even thickness. Let's see. So you can adjust this offset here. You can play around with the offset to change how this scene looks. So you can experiment with this. You can see as I'm offsetting it, you're going to see more green on the floor. You can play around with the settings and try and get it to whatever color you like. Whatever you like is, you know, it's your choice. So I think that's looking pretty good. I think the line thickness could be a bit bigger. Let's try and set that to like 20. Let's see what that looks like. Yeah, I think we need to increase the line thickness on this neon green as well. Let's set that to around 20 as well. I think that's going to be okay. Yeah, that looks pretty good. So let's file save. And let's just press the middle mouse button so that we can pan around and see what this looks like. So I think that's going to be okay. So let's press 0. Then you need to make sure your camera is in the right place, right? So if your camera is not in the right place, when you get to this sort of view, so if you middle mouse click, you can pan around and you can see the different view and a different angle. We really want to get our camera right from the beginning. So let's press F12 to see what the camera sees. And it's going to fly down this corridor almost like, right? It looks a bit hazed out. That's the only problem. So I think we need to turn down the bloom. The bloom is a little bit too high here on the radius. So we want it to be like neon, but let's just reduce that to about 5. I think that's a bit better. So otherwise it's a little bit too hazy. I think that's pretty good. Okay, let's go to file save. And now we want to press number 7. That takes us to the top view. And we want to zoom out. And we're going to go to wireframe for the minute. So click wireframe. And then left click on the canvas to unselect these objects, right? And we're going to press Shift A and insert a plane. And make sure the move tool is selected here. And then you can move that plane. It's pretty small on the screen right here. And we're going to go to the object settings here. And we'll set the width to 5. And then the y-axis, we're going to set this to around 180. So this plane is a little bit smaller than the actual land that we created. And its position, we need to bring it down a little bit, back a little bit to somewhere here. So there's probably about like 1 block here. Can you see? There's 1 block here. That sort of distance, and then there's going to be a gap at the top of like around 3 blocks. But that's what we want. And we're going to middle mouse click. Let's just zoom out. Where we've gone here? Okay. We're going to zoom in a middle mouse click. And we want to see this object and we want to raise it up. Maybe it would be better to do this in like a... But if you press number 1 on your keyboard, you're going to go to the front orthographic, and then you can see roughly where that object is. And we want to move it so that it's pretty much about here. So it's on this sort of line here, on the edge of this land. And then we're going to click on the rotate tool, and we want to rotate it on the y-axis. So when you click this rotate tool, press Y on your keyboard, and you want to rotate it. Let's click on this Y. Let's see. Oh, you got to press R first, R to rotate, and then Y. And we're going to rotate it around to, let's see, 45 degrees. You can see it says minus 45.1. So let's just change this to exactly 45 degrees, like this. Just like this. Okay. Let's go to File, Save. And then we want to, let's see. We can middle mouse click, right, to get out of this that particular view, and we're going to press Shift A again, and we're going to insert a cube. So we've got a cube here, we can't really see it, so we're going to move it, click it, and move it, and we want to zoom in on that cube, right? So what we can do here, let's press N, and then lock to object cube. So in here it says lock camera, lock it to an object, because right now it's locking it to this center point here, but we want to lock it to the cube so we can zoom in on the cube. Then we can undo that afterwards because we want to work on this cube. So when you press the letter N on your keyboard, this transformer will open, and lock camera to object cube will mean that we can rotate around the cube now, right? That's what we want to do. We want to rotate around this cube, not around this big object over here. So lock object to the cube here. Then we can rotate around that cube, zoom into that cube, and do work just on this cube. Okay, we need to go back into the, we can go into look dev mode. So we'll go into look dev for now. And we've got this cube here. We want to, let's just drag it to the side a little bit here for the minute. So we've got the cube. We're going to press Shift D to duplicate and hit the enter key. So we've got two cubes now, and we can drag it across. Then Shift D to duplicate again and hit the enter key, and now we've got 3 cubes. So we've got these 3 cubes. We'll click on the first one and we'll go to the modifier. We'll add a modifier and we'll say wireframe, and we do the same for this one as well, wireframe, and we do the same for the third one, wireframe. Then we'll click back on the first one and we'll go to the material, and we'll click new material, and we'll add a emission shader, and this time we're going to select it as green. Then we'll click on the, and we need to increase this strength to around 10. Then we'll click on the middle one and we'll add a material for that one, and we'll go to the emission shader and we'll select purple color and we'll set that to 10. So we've got green and purple, which is what our landscape was using, and then this third one we want to make it a bit random, right? So we'll click new and we'll set it to a emission shader. We'll set it to 10 as well, and then you can pick a sort of conflicting color, maybe like a, I might go for like a blue. Yeah, so we've got green, purple and blue. Again, you can pick whatever colors you want. We don't really need to be locked to these objects now, so we can click this, let's see, we need to, let's zoom out here a little bit. Oh, it's here. So lock object, we want to click here to cancel it. So now it's going to be locked back onto this point here in the middle. And we want to make this object here, this plane that we created, we're going to name it, in fact we should do a few things here first. So we've got cube 1, 2 and 3. The names of these are fine. Maybe we should call this one cube green. This one here we can call cube purple, and the last one was cube blue. It's worth naming these things in the collection here so you know what they are. So everything's got a good name to it now. This plane here is going to be called particle emitter left. This is the left one. We're going to create a right one afterwards. So let's save this, and we need to go up to here to the scene collection and create a new collection. So click new here, and you see new collection here. Double click on it and call it particles, and then left click on this first cube and then hold down the shift key and click on the other one. So you selected all three and drag them into this particles here, this folder. In fact, we should call it cube particles, like this. That's better. Now we'll click on the particle emitter, the left one, and we'll go to the particles here, simulation, and we'll click new, and we'll set it to around 500 for the minute. Then let's just zoom in here a little bit. Let's press 0 on our keyboard. 0 will take us to the camera view. We can zoom out a little bit so we can see the particle emitter above us. And then we're going to go to render and select collection here. And the scale, we'll sort that out in a minute. In fact, we need to scale this up probably. So let's set it to like, let's set it to 1. And then the randomization, whack it all the way to the top. And then, let's see, click here, collection, and then click on this little box here and select cube particles. And then the velocity, let's set this to something like 2 for now. We're going to have to play around with these settings a little bit. And then rotation, set it to normal, and then let's see, randomize, just set that pretty high. Let's see what happens. Sometimes it's a bit difficult to see how it's going to simulate until you run it. Let's click save and then go to cache here. Let's just see physics. The Brownian, we can actually turn this up to around 5. Let's set it to 5 for now. And let's move up to the bake. So click bake or dynamics and then click play. Okay, so the cubes are falling, but we want it to fall a bit more at an angle. So what we'll do is free the bake here, go to the physics settings here, and then click on the land here. Where's land? Land here, this top one, and select collision here. So now the objects will hit the land and bounce as well. That's what we want. Then we can go back to the particle emitter left one, click on the physics here, and in the, let's see, where is it? In the velocity, let's set this to a higher number, something like, let's try 5. Then click bake or dynamics, click play. Let's go into render view. Let's just see what's going on here. I think we need to rotate this still more. I think it's rotated the wrong way because the particles are falling off this way. We want them to fall off the other way, right? So let's fix that. Really, this rotation is wrong. So with the emitter selected, let's go to the object settings here, and it's set to -45. We want to set it to positive, so just get rid of the minus and hit the enter key. So that's +45. Then we can go back to the particle settings, free the bake and rebake it. Now click play. Now those particles are falling towards the land. So we press 0, we'll see that they're falling down, but they never get to hit the floor because their lifespan is too short. So let's pause this and go back to the first frame, and we need to free the bake here and set the lifetime to 150 here, 150, and maybe we can set the number, we'll leave it at 500 for the minute. Let's bake it again and play. Now we can see they're actually hitting the floor, right? Bouncing. So let's press F12 and we can see these objects as we're flying through this scene. These like cube objects are going to hit the floor, hit the side of the walls and stuff, and bounce around and do all that stuff. So it look okay, I guess. We set the size to 1, so it's basically the same. Although we randomized the sizing, I think the sizing is still a bit too big. So if we free the bake here and go down to the, let's see, the render settings, the scale, let's set it to 0.5. So they're a bit smaller. They're half of the original size, and some of them are going to be random sized. So I think that will be okay. And let's just see, there's one other thing in here. We could set the dampening. Let's see. Let's set this to 1. Air drag 1. Let's just see what that does, because I think that should slow down the objects and also stop them from bouncing too high. So let's click Bake All Dynamics and play it. So the drag is that setting is way too high. So let's free the bake. Let's pause it. Sometimes it's about experimenting, right? If you don't play around with these settings and try and work out what they're doing and understand them, then it's pretty hard to work out how this is all going to work. So I'm going to set this to like 0.2, the drag, and let's see what that does. I think it's the dampening as well that's causing that for them to stick here, but we'll test it. So let's click Bake All Dynamics and play. You can still see they're not falling. So let's free the bake, and we'll set the drag high and set the dampening to like 0.1. Let's see what that does. Let's Bake All Dynamics and play. So that's still not right, is it? So let's free the bake, and we'll bring down the drag to like 0.5, and then click Bake All Dynamics. Let's press F12 to render it, and they're really sticking to the side here too much. So I'm going to free the bake and set this to 0.1 as well, the drag. And let's click Bake All Dynamics and play it. Still not liking that, so maybe we'll just leave these off. Let's leave them off. Whenever you change these settings, you have to click Bake All Dynamics. You have to free it first and then bake it again. Free it and then bake it. So let's play. I think we just leave it like this and let them bounce. I think that will be okay. So angular velocity, here it says what axis is used to change the particle's rotation within time. So the velocity can actually make these objects spin rather than them just falling at a flat sort of trajectory, right? So this cube won't really spin. If we move it back on the timeline, you can see they're just falling, like this cube here is just falling at that particular angle. It won't really, let's see, it won't really change angle when it hits the floor or do anything. So really we want to set this to something, let's see, we'll have to experiment with this, but let's set it to like 1.5, something like this. Let's click Bake All Dynamics, and then we can see that these objects are now rotating as they're falling, and it just makes it look a little bit better rather than them just falling at an angle, but that angle doesn't actually do anything. It just basically looks a bit rubbish, doesn't it? So let's press F12. I'm kind of happy with this. We can always experiment and change it, so it's nothing set in gold, right? We can always have a little play around and change the settings. but really we've got them falling on this direction. We want them falling from the opposite direction. So we're going to click on the particle emitter, press Shift D to duplicate it, and then we're going to drag it, a copy of it, to this side, and then we want to rotate it so that they fall in the other direction. So let's press number 1 on our keyboard, and then press number, we need to actually go into the wireframe view so we can see this a bit more clearly. So we've got one object here and we've got one over here, and we want to rotate this around. So let's click the rotate tool, and then on this green axis we can rotate it around to this angle, which will be minus, let's see, minus 45, right? It was, let's do minus 45, minus 45. I don't know if that's going to work, but let's see what happens. So these two now are particle emitters. Let's click the move tool. Let's move it so that it's exactly in the opposite location of this one. So they're both particle emitters and they're really working independently. So in the particle emitter here, it's called left 0001, which already just named this right. So we've got a left and right one. So click on the left one and then free to bake and bake dynamics. Then click on the right one, free to bake and bake dynamics. Then in theory, we should see them both falling now, right? You can see how they're bouncing off the edges and doing all that good stuff. So that should be okay. Let's press 0 and let's go into our render view again. And we zoom in a little bit so what the camera can see. We'll go back to the first frame and play it. Now we can see all these objects falling in. And we should pause on the frame and then press F12 to render it out. And we can see like these objects are going to fall in as we're flying through this canyon or these mountains, or whatever you want to call them. We're going to have to dodge around some of these edges with the camera, so we have to move the camera to rotate or like fly around these edges. We might do something pretty cool. Maybe we'll fly around it at an angle or do something, and then all these objects are going to drop in from the top here. What would be nice, I guess, if this camera was a little bit higher. So we can click on the camera, and then that will be, so this is the x-axis, the y is on the vertical, going forwards, and then the z-axis should be the height, right? So you can have it really high up, but I really want it kind of quite low down, and then we want to rotate the camera, right? Not on the y-axis. So y we can set to 0 here on the rotation. The z-axis is going to be like the left and right, so we can set that to 0. We want it straight on, so it will be this rotation. We can rotate it looking upwards, but then on the z-axis bring it down. So we don't want it too close to the floor, something like here, but we can rotate the camera and make it look upwards. So it's going forwards, but the camera is almost looking up towards the sky a little bit, so we can see the scene like this, and then we can see a lot more of these particles dropping in as we're flying. And because it's quite low to the ground, it's going to look pretty cool now, right? It's going to look good. Okay, let's go to File, Save. So that's basically our scene set up now. So we're pretty much good to animate our camera now and fly through this scene. So that's the end of the first part of this tutorial. In the second part, we'll animate the camera and fly through this canyon, and then we'll look at also creating some sort of animation at the end. And we also want to add this like rotating planet at the very back of this landscape. We want this sort of basic planet sort of shape rotating. So we'll do that in the next tutorial. And let's close this down. Make sure we go to File, Save. We'll close this down, and I look forward to seeing you in the second part of this tutorial.